Hey everyone, if you clicked on this video, chances are you probably want to find the fastest ways you can farm Azoth salt. It seems like Azoth salt is turning into one of the most important resources now in Season 10 of New World, and that's primarily because you have to use the Azoth salt to purchase different rewards from the PvP reward track. There's currently a cap of 100,000 Azoth salt, and honestly there are some very good items that can pop up on here. We're talking about artifacts, cool looking furniture, dyes, gold, umbral crystals, and even new gear set pieces. So in today's video, I'm going to be highlighting how you can get a ton of this Azoth salt very fast. And honestly, I'm not even going to be talking about the typical ways people get Azoth salt. So, the everyday things like capture the flag, doing some outpost rush gives you a decent chunk, or even just PvP races. I'm not going to be talking about any of these activities. You guys already know about that. Instead, we're going to be talking about how you can actually get a lot of this Azoth salt through just everyday activities. So what I want to do now is actually take a closer look at the actual description of Azoth salt. It calls out that I can basically get Azoth salt through all these different PvP activities, but it ends by saying I can gain it from earning XP while flagged. Well, currently I'm flagged for PvP, as you can tell from the lower left corner, right? And what's interesting is that that timer is starting and I'm technically close enough to these stations that I can actually engage with them. Previously, what people used to do is flag for PvP, run outside of town, lay down a camp, wait until that timer is up and start crafting a ton, and technically you'll be gaining experience as flagged, thus getting Azoth salt. When it comes to the Grand Carnival in Nighthaven, I can essentially interact with all of these different stations, opening myself up to more ways to gain experience. At a typical camp, I'm basically dependent on just a few different cooking things and infused alkahest and things like that. But the fact that I can actually engage with a full-on arcane repository means I can do a handful of different things, such as like crafting for these actual items and condensing moats and so much more. Before I actually do this activity though, I do want to call out that you should be using your territory standing boost because you will be gaining a ton of territory standing from doing these types of things. So I did pop one of my boosters there. I do have territory standing bags and things like that. And now I'm basically ready to actually do some crafting. So for starters, let's start with this. I have a ton of these ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and craft 980 of these and take a look at this. 3,000 Azoth salt I just gained from doing that. And that's primarily because I'm flagged and technically gaining experience. I can go ahead and do more of that too. So for example, let's go down to moats. So I've got a handful of moats. Let me see which one it is. Let's see. As you can tell, I'm even buying more just because I'm trying to stock up on as much Azoth salt as possible. So let's go ahead and do these. As you can tell, I gained some good territory standing. Not quite enough experience to get that Azoth salt, but it's just telling me that I'm probably pretty close to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do another big stash. This probably will push me over the edge. Nope, it doesn't. But again, I must be pretty close to it. Let me go ahead and do this again. I keep calling them moats, but they're actually wisps. So I'm just going to go ahead and just condense all of these that I have. There we go. So that gave me another 1,500 salt. I can just keep doing this. And again, you have a handful of different stations on how you can kind of interact with and technically gain experience while you're flagged. When I first showed you guys my PvP screen, you'd have seen that I was at 36,000 Azoth salt. And just after a few minutes of crafting and consolidating some of my materials, I gained roughly 11,000 Azoth salt. Again, this just took a few minutes. I didn't have to just queue and go through OPRs over and over and over again. Essentially, there is a indirect way to basically buy Azoth salt in this game through this method. In case down the road they end up like kind of nerfing this method or saying you can no longer craft at those stations, you still can leave the primary town, go out in the wilderness and actually create a camp. Then you can kind of create infused alkahest, you can do some cooking and things like that. So you can still gain a lot of PvP experience in order to get Azoth Salt. You just will be a little bit more limited on what you can actually do to get it. And that really sums it up. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, because I have a whole lot more New World content coming soon. Thanks again, and I'll catch you guys later.